Pushkin. From BBC Studios and Pushkin Industries, this is Big Lives. I'm Emmanuel Dzotsi.
I'm Kai Wright.
On this show, we take a single cultural icon and we break down their life and their impact using the absolute treasure trove that is the BBC's archive. And today, Kai, we are going to talk about the one and the only Meg Ryan.
The one and the only is a strange way for me to hear the beginning of Meg Ryan.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know anything about her, but I do kind of think just the word vanilla is what comes to mind. And I enjoy vanilla ice cream, but not like a good vanilla ice cream with the beans and all that. It's just kind of grocery store vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla. Well, that hurt me slightly because she is one of my maybe favorite actors.
Oh, really?
But we'll get to that. Yeah. And I guess I'm curious, when you think of Ryan, what's the movie scene that comes to mind?
Well, real talk, I didn't really watch any of her movies, but it would be... Or I don't even...
We are on different planets.
I think we are. It would be, I guess, whatever, because I don't even really remember When Harry Met Sally. But so I think it would probably be the poster of When Harry Met Sally.
Wow, not even... Okay, that is what... So... You did say somewhat of what I thought you were going to say, which is you mentioned When Harry Met Sally, which is arguably Meg Ryan's most famous movie, this big romantic comedy. And there is this scene in it that I always think about when I think about Meg Ryan, which is that it is this scene where she and Harry are in Katz's Deli, this restaurant in Lower Manhattan, and they're talking about sex, and Harry, who is played by Billy Crystal, is bragging about just how good he is in bed with women, and basically Meg Ryan fakes an orgasm live in the restaurant just to prove that he might not know what he's talking about.
Right. Okay, I know the scene.
Yes. Oh, God.
I'll have what she's having.
It's the joke at the end. I'll have what she's having. That's the one I remember.
Yes.
But I only remember it out of context. I don't remember it in the movie itself.
That scene from it is iconic. And I don't know, I guess you could say for 30 plus years, I feel like that scene of that movie is a big part of Meg Ryan's calling card. And for people who might not know, who know even less than you about Meg Ryan, Meg Ryan is an actress, massive star in the late 80s and throughout the 90s. And over the course of the 90s especially, over 10 years, she starred in a series of movies. So When Harry Met Sally, which we just talked about, Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, just a bunch of these romantic comedies that made her really the face of that genre. She was basically the queen of a romantic comedy, synonymous with that type of movie. But, I've never understood why movies like When Harry Met Sally or Sleepless in Seattle, why they fell out of fashion as much as they did. Obviously, they still have existed.
Because you're a stand for this genre.
I am... How do I put this? I don't know how I can say this accurately and make it a big enough a deal to just convey how much this woman was a fixture of my life. I'm talking every Sunday night, peeking out from behind my mum, doing my sister's hair, watching these movies. I think we must have owned maybe 3 or 4 copies of some of these movies. We'd have a version that we would record it on TV, a version that, we actually bought in the store, and, we'd have, a VCR version, a DVD version. These movies were such a big part of our lives. They definitely shaped my childlike view of love and what love and romance was supposed to be.
Right.
And I don't think that I'm actually alone in that. I think there are a lot of people who looked at these movies as sort of saying something about love, which is a big deal because after that 10-year period, Hollywood kind of stopped making movies like that. After, Meg Ryan sort of faded from view a little bit. And yes, people kept making romantic movies. They've made a big comeback now. But I don't know, these movies just don't hit the same. And I never totally understood why the drop-off had happened, why the quality had dropped off, what was going on besides, just studio heads being dumb and Hollywooding. And so I am here today, Kai, to investigate a question with you through the life of Meg Ryan, which is, why did the rom-com die and who killed it?
Oh, okay. There's a villain.
Well, okay. I don't know about like a singular villain, but definitely like, I don't know, like there's a crime scene there to be excavated. As I went through the BBC archives and just sort of dug through these old interviews of Meg Ryan, the rom-com queen herself, like, I don't know, I went on a journey that took me to that particular moment, to a singular interview that I really feel like if you're hunting for who killed the rom-com, like that's the scene of the crime.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I'm in for that.
Welcome back to Big Lives. Today, we're talking about Meg Ryan, who, Kai, earlier you called vanilla.
I just don't know anything about
And not the good kind.
Not the good kind of vanilla. But I don't, help me see this woman that shaped your childhood.
Okay, let me help you. And if you bear with me, I'm just going to tell you about where Meg Ryan came from and, her career before the BBC appearance that we're going to get to. Just because I don't know, I think so much of what happens in that moment is a fundamental disagreement over the journey of Meg Ryan's career and how not vanilla Meg Ryan actually is. But listen, Meg Ryan, a blonde white woman who was born in the early 60s.
Her actual given name was Meg Hyra.
Oh.
She actually changed it to Ryan much later when she got into acting. Ryan's actually her grandmother's last name. But in any case, what's remarkable to me, I think when I think about how Meg Ryan actually got her start and became the person that we're going to talk about, is that she did so in such a sort of classic Hollywood way that I think really only exists for pretty white blonde women, which is she totally fell backwards into acting. She was actually in college studying to be a journalist.
A journalist?
Yeah, a journalist. And then just started acting in TV commercials just to make some extra money, basically, to help put her through school.
Wow.
And kind of, when I say commercials, I'm talking like 1980s, like we're early 1980s here, razzle dazzle, jingle dingle, like Burger King commercials.
About the Aren't You Hungry for a Whopper game at Burger King. You can win a Whopper or a Coke, $1,000, $5,000, even $1 million. There's a 1 in 6 chance of winning a prize. Okay, back to the most important reason to come to Burger King, the food.
What? So first off, to your point, like, I can't imagine being in college and being like, oh, maybe I'll just do some acting in commercials.
Right.
And that's like what's going to pay my rent as opposed to washing dishes.
100%. But she makes it happen and it blows up and she is in this. And just to say, like, obviously you heard what I was talking about with the razzle dazzle of that commercial. Like, what you are picturing is completely accurate.
Exactly it.
I'm talking like big pieces of tomato slices flying through the air, landing neatly on a perfectly juicy burger that doesn't look edible really. And then, of course, you have this woman pop up. She's young, she's peppy, and she starts trying to sell you on some random sweepstakes thing. And that, of course, is Meg Ryan. And I don't know, watching that and listening to it, I feel like you're just like, oh, this is a person who seems right out of like a 1950s cheerleading squad or something. Like peppy and sweet, but still in an era where they're like wearing like floor-length skirts in the sense that she's sort of innocent, but also kind of dorky. Like that.
Girl next door.
Totally. The girl next door. And that is, from the very beginning, even of her acting career, from that commercial onwards, the role that Meg Ryan would sort of inhabit in a lot of American culture. The role she played in a bunch of movies. So, yes, early 80s, she kind of blows up because of these commercials. And guess what? She's so successful in them, I guess I should say, that she drops out of college with a semester to go to become a star, to go pursue acting full-time. And where she goes next is she ends up in the world of soap operas. She ends up playing this character called Betsy Stewart on a show called As the World Turns.
As the World Turns, yes.
Did you watch As the World Turns as a kid?
My grandmother was huge on the soaps. Like the soaps were, when I was a kid, soaps were a big deal. And so like people would literally like go to work, take their lunch break to call their friend who had the soaps on to find out what was happening right now.
Right.
So as a kid, if you were being watched by any older, particularly woman, you were watching soaps.
100%. I was one of them. And I don't know about you, but what I remember from those soaps is it's a sort of acting if you're in a soap, because there are all of these crazy plot like changes and all the rest of it. You know, it's dramatic acting, but like over dramatic acting. Nothing is left up to guessing. It is a very particular kind of acting school, if you will, which is how I see it in Meg Ryan's early career. And I'm just going to play you this clip. Here she is being asked about that time on this soap, just like a few years later as part of like a press junket.
There's a famous story about you when you were in an American soap, this great story that...
Oh, what?
You could turn on the tears at will, and at the end of every Friday episode, Meg would cry and they'd be hooked for the Monday.
I would weep. I can weep almost at will. I don't know what that's all about. And maybe it was 2 years on the soap where I had to do it as often as I had to do it.
What do you think about when you do it? I mean... Do you think sad things, or do you
on the soap, I used to be very frustrated with how things were going. Because you work for so long, you know, so many hours, and you have to say such ridiculous things and make it sound like you mean it. So it was a very frustrating experience. So I would generally call on that.
So,
wow.
Yeah, she is this very kind of particular person. Like, there are like two types of movie stars, right? There's a sort of movie star that seems like a god, where you're just like, wow, I am seeing Denzel in this. And Denzel is playing a real man, but it's almost like he's deigning to play a normal man for us. You know what I mean?
He's
These
still
untouchable
Denzel
people.
Washington.
Exactly. And then there's another type of actor who their whole appeal is based on how much you relate to them. They are plain by definition. They feel like somebody you know. You believe it. And the best sorts of those actors, I say, maybe people like Tom Hanks, right? Where you're just like, America's Dad, somebody who seems like somebody you might know. And that's what gives his roles gravitas and meaning. And I feel like all of this sort of training, the Burger King stuff, the soap training, is training Meg Ryan to connect with a very particular demographic as their every woman.
I have to say, listening to that tape, though, like, that was exactly my response. Like, emotionally, I don't really know her, and I haven't listened to her talk a lot, but listening to her talk, she did make me interested in her. Like, just her voice made me lean in.
For you, what is it about her voice that makes you lean in?
I don't know. I think I was reacting to it, and I think it's what you just said, that she was being super relatable.
Yeah.
You know, like that she sounded like a human being in a way that is not really quantifiable. There's just something about her voice that literally made me sit forward.
And so she harnesses that. She only spends a couple of years on the soap. And then she's kind of off to the movies. There's a few sort of smaller independent things that you do. And then she lands like a role in a big film that is so synonymous with the late 1980s, which is Top Gun.
Ah, right. I didn't even remember she's in Top Gun.
She plays the wife of Tom Cruise's right-hand man, Goose. But her big breakthrough is the 1989 film, the masterpiece, When Harry Met Sally. An iconic movie. It's one of my favorite movies. You know, the brainchild of the genius writer Nora Ephron and the director who passed away really tragically last year, Rob Reiner.
R.I.P.
And, you know, when I say, we don't make a certain type of romantic comedy anymore, I think this film actually is a perfect example of that, right? Like, this movie is born out of an argument that Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron have about whether men and women can actually be truly platonic friends.
They take that whole argument and make it into a movie starring Meg Ryan as like the female love interest and Billy Crystal as the male love interest. Basically, these kind of stand-ins for both Nora and Rob Reiner in a way.
Billy Crystal as the, like, sex god is very difficult to wrap my head around.
It's weird, but also that's the thing about the movie, is that you're just like, right, this is a guy who looks like an average guy.
All right,
you know, he's not the usual heartthrob in the usual role.
I'd put him at below average, but I hear your point.
Billy. He's not handsome, but he's charming.
He's not supposed to be handsome, yeah.
And so the movie is about like these two people who meet when they're like leaving college, and it follows their friendship over the course of, I don't know, I think like a decade or so, as they deal and kind of figure out how they fit in the world, and also as they figure out what they want from a partner.
The movie is wrestling with something genuinely very messy and super complicated and kind of subterranean about our relationships with each other.
I don't understand, Emmanuel, why, because this is like such a big deal movie. I think many people, if they were to name like the 5 greatest movies, a lot of people, this would be on that list. And I just have no relationship to it and why it's so great. I was just recently talking to people who were shocked. Can you help? What is it about that movie that makes it so great?
So
I don't.
Here's the thing. You're right. There are a lot of romantic movies that come out in this time period that are classics, right? And I think what's different for me about When Harry Met Sally is that I think it's a movie about very grown people. Everybody, most of the movie takes place in a phase where everybody in the movie is supposed to be in their 30s. These characters have passed. Like, Billy Crystal's main character, Harry, has been divorced already, for example.
Right.
Like, it's
not like coming of age, which is what you would think of.
No, it's not a coming of age love story in that sort of way. It is a movie that is very interested and focused on making sense of how do we fall in love today. And just to place us in context of where we are here, late 80s, like we're now in an era where women have been in the workplace for quite a while, but still, especially for white women, because it's not necessarily the same for black women, for white women in particular, we're still looking at kind of the first generation of women in a lot of families who are going to college and who are working that corporate job, not as a secretary, but as like a real person. Life is more fast-paced. And so people are, I feel like, at this time trying to figure out, like, okay, the world is different. How is love different? And what do we want out of a partner now that we're not totally locked in the sort of 1950s charade of, like, guy as the breadwinner and coming home and all of those sorts of things. Like, what do we want out of love now, I think, is a real question that movie's asking. Even just the premise of, like, can men and women be friends? Like, there's no room, really, for, like, a heterosexual platonic friendship in that sort of 1950s idyllic, like, suburban dream, right?
Well, that's very helpful. And now I get it. Like, it's really speaking to a very specific question and feeling that people have at the time. So that is helpful.
Totally.
I get that.
And I think that's what sets it apart. And also, it's a romantic movie that's not really that interested in, like, romance with a capital R, for me, at least. Like, there are, I think, bits of it that definitely mirror what has become a formula for rom-coms, right? The will they, won't they of two people.
Right.
If only they could figure it out. There is, of course, a grand declaration from one of the characters to the other at the end of the movie. But even that declaration really is a speech about compromise. I hate these things about you, but more importantly, I hate the fact that I can't seem to live without you. It's the message of the movie. And which is different and unique, and I think real. Exactly. In a very real way. And of course, one of the more famous scenes that we already talked about is the orgasm scene, which is you're talking about sex from a very particular kind of perspective that wasn't always displayed in the movies, right? Which is basically a female character calling a male character's bluff on, like, well, here's how sex is actually for me a lot of the time. Anyways, the movie is a phenomenon. And I'm actually just going to play you a bit of this interview that Nora Ephron, the writer of the movie, gave just about the orgasm scene and just about, like, the process of working with both Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan on this film.
Because of Rob Reiner and because of When Harry Met Sally, I really learned that if you have smart actors who are funny and they have ideas, you're crazy not to listen to them. It was Meg Ryan's idea that after that scene where she and Billy Crystal talked about orgasm, she would have one in the delicatessen. That's her idea. Therefore, she's probably entirely responsible for my career.
And I think that's the thing. Meg Ryan makes that role look easy. But there is a thing she's doing throughout that like I think is special. And I think she makes the whole thing work in part because we believe her. We know that white woman.
Yeah.
Like in her, the character she plays is a white woman who's picky about a lot of different things in her life, who is slightly a little bit of a Karen. You know what I mean? And many people watching that movie are that white woman. So it does well. She is now a genuine star. So Meg Ryan, after the success of When Harry Met Sally, goes on to star in more Nora Ephron films, which kind of starts this golden period. First one she does up next is this movie, Sleepless in Seattle, which I can tell from the light leaving your eyes you have absolutely no relationship to whatsoever.
Literally never seen it.
In pain, you have me. In pain, but that's okay. How to describe this movie? Basically, Tom Hanks is a grieving widower, and he has this really cute, 8-year-old son, Jonah. And Jonah calls into a radio show and is like, I think my dad needs a wife.
Oh, Jonah.
And then, of course, Meg Ryan's character hears that radio segment. And yeah, the rest of the movie is about what transpires next for both of them to possibly meet. It's this movie that is celebrating in a lot of ways just like that magic of the possibility that there might be somebody out there somewhere for you, you know?
Yeah.
In a way, it's kind of different than the last movie that they've made, When Harry Met Sally, which is more rooted in realism, especially because underlining all of this is it's almost like a response in a way to a certain sort of cynicism. And the thing it's responding to, the movie as a message, is this very real Newsweek article that was written in the late 1980s, which said that it was easier for women to get killed by a terrorist than to get married over the age of 40.
Wow.
Which again, we're in this era of...
I can't. I can't with almost every word of that sentence.
Which, just to say, that article was so infamous, Newsweek actually years and years later did have to officially retract it. They were like, we apologize.
Really?
Yes. They were like, we
Wow.
apologize for this. This was wrong and dumb and not really grounded in anything. But yeah.
Other than misogyny.
Basically, yes. It's like sort of that conversation about what do we want out of love now for a specific sort of population? What does it mean? Is headed in this direction, right? Of just sort of like, oh, well, people are getting married a little later. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily getting married to their high school sweetheart. And there's this pushback against that of saying, well, the odds of you getting married are really small. Like that's what it's coming out of.
This is interesting because not only do I not know a lot about Meg Ryan, I actually don't know a lot about Nora Ephron either, other than she's considered one of the greatest writers ever, Mm-hmm. And now I'm getting a sense of why. She's interrogating these tropes about women of a certain age in a way that no one had before that. So I'm getting an appreciation for that.
100%. And also, the other thing that this movie does that I think is really important is that it's a commentary on what romantic movies are. What I just described to you is deliberately kind of played up in the movie, right? They play up the nature of the meet cute. They play up the nature of these different things. There are these running references throughout the movie to this classic romantic movie called An Affair to Remember, which stars Cary Grant, in which, the big romantic set piece at the end is the two people who are hopefully destined to be together try to meet up on Valentine's Day at the Empire State Building. And that ends up being the set piece of Sleepless in Seattle. And there's a line in the movie that I think really speaks to this idea of just how much romantic movies can shape us, which is, I don't want to be in love. I just want to be in love in a movie.
Yeah. Which was what Emmanuel was thinking.
Yes, which is what I was totally thinking. This movie spoke to little 7-year-old me in a very particular kind of way. I think it literally ends with a song, the lyrics of which are just make someone happy and you will be happy too. It's propaganda for big love. That's what this movie is.
Oh.
I just want to point you to this interview that Meg Ryan did while promoting that movie, because I think it was really revealing about both where she was at the time in her personal life and why people related to her and this type of movie that she was making. It's with this guy who has a ridiculous name. The name is Alan Titmarsh, who I guess was like a cozy daytime interviewer in the UK. I'm sorry, Alan. I know you get this.
I'm sorry, Alan, but you have a ridiculous name.
It is what it is.
Marsh.
But for whatever reason, this guy who does like sleepy daytime television has been pulled into one of those, those really awkward promo interviews for movies where they have like an actor sitting in a hotel room and it's like they just cycle on the interviewers through. I want you to picture that scene, right? And, the tape that we have actually is pretty raw. You can like hear them getting set up and just all this awkward small talk. But somehow in like all of this awkwardness, there's a legitimate discussion about where this genre that Meg Ryan is the face of, where it's going, right? And this guy, Titmarsh, is like, wow, yeah, this movie is so big right now. And he asks her, like, why is this type of movie so popular? And Meg Ryan answers by telling basically her own love story with the actor Dennis Quaid, who, big actor and star in his own right in a bunch of different movies.
Didn't know they were married.
And she seems so in love.
Are you a great believer in fatalism yourself, then?
Yes, I am. Not destiny, really. Is that the same thing as fatalism?
I don't know.
Fatalism just seems so negative to me. But
oh, all right, I'll go along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, I am. I mean, I've been telling like this when I was doing press for this in the States. This story about I saw my husband, or rather, he saw me years before we ever met. And it was odd because I was walking up the street in New York and I remember the day. And I remember that I had this strange sweater on. And I just remember how perfect this day was on 81st and 82nd, between 81st and 82nd on Amsterdam. And Dennis, my husband, remembers me walking up the street in this sweater on this unbelievable day. So I think it's odd that I remember one day, the fall in New York, and that Dennis remembers seeing me, and I wasn't an actress then. He just remembers it, and it was a very strange long blue sweater that came down to here, and he remembers it. So interesting. So there are a lot of times that I think that I think about you're passing through an airport, and who else are you passing by, and it's a very romantic concept, I think.
She is winning. That is a winning woman. I have to say, like, despite all my whatever I said about her at the beginning, when you listen to her talk, like...
Yeah, she's compelling. She makes you believe.
She's compelling.
Totally. And, okay, I want you to adopt your inner white woman in your 30s in, Bill Clinton's first administration. Like, you're hearing that and seeing that, and you're like, yeah, it does feel like there's love for me. I'm buying what you're selling. You know what I mean?
I don't have to adopt that. I will take my middle-aged black man in Donald Trump's America and listen to that and be like, I'm buying what you're selling. I mean...
100%. And so it really just solidifies publicly, right, this is someone who is living and acting the happily ever after narrative, right? Yeah. You can do it all, actually. You can have it all. And that's true on screen, and it's true in her real life as well. But it is a fairy tale.
Oh.
And, the thing we know about fairy tales, Kai, is fairy tales do not last. They're not real. And some things transpire over the next few years in Meg Ryan's life and in her career that completely kind of shatter whatever illusion and fairy tale that's been created. And one of the biggest breaking points in those years actually happens on tape in an interview with the BBC.
Wow.
Welcome back to Big Lives. We're talking about Meg Ryan, and we're also talking about who killed the rom-com.
Who killed it?
Where we left off, it's right in the mid-90s. And at this point, Meg Ryan publicly is ostensibly totally happily married to Dennis Quaid, top of the movie world, blah, 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 Golden Globes out the wazoo. It's all great. Except,
no marriage can be perfect. And, their marriage is definitely complicated. Like, Dennis Quaid in the 80s, struggled pretty heavily with addiction.
Yeah. And all of that, his big struggle of addiction is happening, really early on in his relationship with Meg. He gets clean sort of right before they get married. But the after effects of him dealing with his addiction, it affects their relationship. Because, of course, how could it not?
Wait, so all along the perfect marriage that she's talking about in that interview that I was so drawn to, it's not true?
I mean, listen, you never know really what goes on in anybody's marriage, but
fair.
It seems like it's more complicated than that. You know what I mean? It's a lot more complicated than that. And again, if you note, like in that interview, she focuses on their meet cute.
Not
on what's actually happening right now.
Wow.
So yeah, things are bad through the late 90s with them. And in 2000, they separate, right? And they get divorced a year later. But that narrative of their relationship, the addict one, is not the narrative that grips the public. I don't even know, honestly, how public Dennis Quaid was at that time with his struggles.
Either way, what the public focuses on is actually an alleged affair that Meg Ryan has towards the end of that relationship.
Up.
Yeah, she allegedly has this romance with Russell Crowe.
With Russell Crowe?
Yeah, they started in a movie together, and apparently he steps out. And
This is absolutely not where I thought this conversation was going.
But that's the thing, right? Like, you had this image of Meg Ryan as this vanilla person.
Totally.
And so that seems, and if you're having this reaction now, imagine at the height of her fame, the reaction people are having. She's seen as having failed in this very specific way, in this perfect Hollywood marriage. And not only she's failed, she is now the picture of a type of woman that her fans do not want to relate to. Because she's a cheater.
Yeah.
She's being depicted as a cheater. And
you're married to an addict and you're cheating. This is a far cry from
100%. 100%. And I want to, just say here, we don't know the truth about whether she was separated, whether she actually cheated, whether they were even still really totally together, whatever. But this is what was pushed.
Nor is any of it our business.
Exactly. And I think that is kind of the attitude that Meg Ryan takes around this time. It feels like from that point on, she's like, fine, you know what? This is none of your business, but you want to be in my business. I'm not your idealized sweetheart. It's basically the attitude she kind of takes. And up until this point, she has been literally called by critics and by different cultural commentators America's sweetheart. That's the thing she has.
Absolutely.
And, her career takes an interesting turn where she takes on a new role that is totally different to a lot of the others she's been in. And we're going to fast forward here to 2003 to a movie called In the Cut. Did you ever hear about this movie?
I'm lost. No.
Okay.
But the name is already very different.
This movie, I should say, was not well reviewed. It was not well reviewed. You know how I talked about what my relationship was to romantic comedies and to Citizen Seattle and stuff like that? I had a very different relationship as a child with In the Cut. Which is, I remember, in a kind of perverse, stupid way, it was the movie around school that people were saying, oh, it's the movie where you see Meg Ryan's titties. That was the movie. And I'm just going to try and say the premise of this movie. Not like a 12-year-old, with a straight face, which is she plays an English teacher, sort of uptight English teacher, who finds sexual liberation in a very kinky way with a cop investigating a series of murders in her town who may have committed those murders.
What are you talking about?
It's a Jane Campion movie. And listen, I love Jane Campion. I obviously love Meg Ryan. I'm not going to ride hard for this movie. I'm not going to do that. I rewatched it last night just to make sure it's not for me. It's not for me. But the reaction to it, I got to say, is wild. This movie is infamous for its sex scenes. They're very raw. Meg Ryan has not really done full nudity graphic scenes or anything like that.
Right.
And people do not like this at all. And it's interesting because it's not like Meg Ryan had played women who didn't have sex. She definitely did. But like,
I mean, she had an orgasm at a dining room table.
yes, but it was like kind of like a fake, but it was sort of like a fake orgasm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Her character in Sleepless in Seattle, Nora Ephron famously said, was basically like a Republican woman who's never had an orgasm. You know? Like the one sex scene that I could remember Meg Ryan being in, besides this one, it comes in the movie City of Angels, where she's literally sleeping with an angel.
So, yeah, right.
Like she's sleeping with she's making love to a manifestation of God. Like that's as risque as it gets. You know what I mean?
But now she's in the cut.
Now she's in the cut. And people are angry about this film. They do not like what this is. It's not about it. And it is in that context that she goes on the Michael Parkinson show, which was like basically the British version of The Tonight Show that aired on BBC for, I don't know, dog years. Like Michael Parkinson was like an institution. If you are a celebrity selling something in the UK, you are going through there, right?
Got it.
And in this interview, you know, again, if we're on the hunt for who and what killed the rom-com, like this is where it happens.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is where it happens. All right.
And I just want you to picture it, right? This is prime Saturday night television, 6 million people watching, right? And it's a talk show, in the sense that it's a talk show, but it's kind of different, I think, to what we're used to in America with like the Tonight Show, all that kind of stuff. Insofar as the format for this show, there are multiple guests on it. And they're different segments. So the way they do it is they'll have one set of guests on first and then sort of bring in a headlining guest. And so Meg Ryan is the headlining guest. It's this big, like, set. There's like a studio audience. Everything's sort of glittering and chrome in a very sort of Y2K kind of way. And it's this they have the guests come down in this very ground way.
Ladies and gentlemen, Meg Ryan.
So Meg Ryan kind of comes down this, like, kind of twisted staircase in this big dramatic sort of entrance. And right from the start, Parkinson, who I should just say, he is kind of older at this point. Like, I think this was one of maybe the final, like, season, so to speak, of this talk show that he does. And he is kind of known for being a bit of a straight talker and being gruff and saying things a little out of pocket. It's late night TV, so you can kind of get away with more. It's a little risky. And right from the start, the vibe is off. Like, just off. Parkinson has just been interviewing, as part of the first segment, a couple of fashion journalists who host this show called What Not to Wear, right? That gives advice to people on what not to wear. And so as Meg Ryan sits down, he asks her about that. He's sort of like, well, okay, so what's your relationship to fashion? Like, do you have a take on this whole fashion stuff and what you wear? And Meg Ryan is just kind of like, oh, I really don't have a take on fashion. I grin and bear it. Is basically what she says. And Parkinson immediately seems very disappointed that she's not sort of like taking part. And she's just sort of like, I don't care. And I don't know if like what is going on. It almost feels like there's been some sort of fight like that happened behind the scenes before. But whatever happens next is just so awkward. Parkinson goes on to talk about the film, which clearly, like a lot of people who've seen the film, he does not like this film. And some of the questioning around like everything from, you know, the directorial choices to the plot, which again, I will say makes no sense, is like kind of aggressive from what you would think of from a talk show host. You know, we're used to seeing sort of like talk show hosts sit down and sort of like hype you up or at least make a joke out of what's happening, right? Or the bad criticism or whatever. And his questions are, well, I'm just going to play you this clip where he is talking about some of the nudity in this movie that he says multiple times before this are kind of graphic.
I want to ask you, this is a serious question. It's not prurient. It is, how long do you have to take to be with a fellow actor to play scenes like you played there? I mean, there's the tenderest scene of all is where he kisses your backside. How long do you have to know an actor before he kisses your bum? That's what I'm
Just the first day of shooting.
No, it wasn't the first day of shooting. No, come on, tell me. It's a serious question.
The last day.
The last day, yes. So obviously you have to build...
It was a tremendous experience for both of us and to work with Jane Campion, who, if you've ever seen any of her films, you know that how she treats eroticism in an incredibly artful way. And I disagree with you also that it's graphic. I think it's poetic.
Well, your scenes may be, but there's one very graphic scene, sexual scene.
Which one? With myself?
No, the Falato scene.
Oh, well, you don't see anything.
You don't see anything, you see the lot.
Suggested.
Have
you guys seen it? No.
No, you do actually. I mean, you can't deny that that's very, very graphic.
Well, I also think Jane is a remarkable filmmaker too, because she suggests more than you actually see.
Yes.
That's the truth.
Let's. I'm getting nowhere with this conversation.
No, just nowhere at all.
Wow.
It's awkward and weird, right?
And it's not I mean, this is a promotion. Like, you're supposed to be on there promoting the film,
right.
And he's like ripping into her about it being inappropriate.
And bear in mind, he's also doing the normal talk show promotional things, right? Like, he's playing clips of the movie and then asking questions like this.
And then shitting on it.
Yeah, and she's trying to do her best to be game, right? But also kind of like, whoa, bro, this is an old man, like, asking in a kind of leering way about this stuff, in a way that is making her uncomfortable.
I mean, anytime somebody tells you they're not doing something crappy and then start talking, you can bet that that's what they're doing. This isn't a prurient question, but let me ask you about the details of having your ass kissed.
100%. And the whole time, right, the camera is sort of tightening on Meg Ryan's face. She just looks like so uncomfortable. And you would think that, maybe after one of these exchanges where she's kind of politely saying, okay, keep pushing, buddy, he would move on, but he doesn't. It's like he's upset at how he knows the interview's not going well, but instead of pivoting, he's sort of taking it out on her and keeps making digs at her via what would otherwise be kind of like softball questions. So, this is, how like they play clips through in these sort of promotional interviews, and the whole dance is they play a clip and then the audience claps and then the host is like, wow, so good, so amazing, blah, blah, blah. Here's the kind of stuff that he says after he plays clips.
You said once that acting was not in your nature.
I did.
You did say that, yes, you did say that. Are you denying that you said that? I mean, it's not that...
No, it seems like something I'd say.
What?
All right, fine.
No, I think what I meant was that it always feels very awkward for me to be in front of an audience or in the spotlight. It doesn't come all that naturally.
So why do it?
I don't know. Maybe you can help me out with that.
No, I couldn't. It's for you to debate and tell me.
I don't know. I'm compelled, though. I like it. I like the work a lot.
But you don't like the spotlight that goes with it? The rest of it?
It's awkward. It's not something that comes easily or fits naturally. I mean, I do it, it's fine, but it doesn't seem, like an easy fit.
But you can't have one without the other, can you? You can't do what you do and be famous and well-known without...
Well, I think you can certainly be an actor and not be a movie star.
Well, but you are a movie star.
Yes.
By choice.
Seemingly.
So... you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it seems that one that's not going to be resolved on this show.
Do you hear her answers to the question getting shorter and shorter and shorter?
Shorter and shorter and shorter. Like, all of a sudden, he's an investigative reporter, and his audience likes this?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's kind of like a rigged game. But, and again, when we're talking about who is this for? Like... Parkinson is operating from a point of strength here, clearly, because he knows she's been getting bad reviews.
Right.
He knows people are upset. And so he's really going for it. I'm going to play another one. It's like, at one point he asked her just like about her one-time ambitions to be a journalist, right? And it turns into this like meta commentary on the interview. That's weird, where he's really just being very confrontational.
I mean, what kind of journalist would you have made, do you think?
Well, I wasn't interested in doing anything really, hardcore. But I was interested in doing things like, maybe write for a magazine or cooking. Some article on food.
Now that you're wary of journalists, I mean, does it give you an insight into what they're after?
Now that I'm wary of them.
Yes, you are wary of journalists. You're wary of me. You're wary of the interview. You don't like being interviewed. You can see it in the way that you sit and the way you are.
Wow.
You don't like doing it. So therefore, well, I mean, it's a perfectly easy question, a decent question to ask you about being a journalist. I mean, in other words, if you were me, what would you do now?
Well, just wrap it up.
Yes. Yes.
But isn't that odd?
What a dick.
Right. And I have to say, like, there is a kind of old-timey sort of, like, you can hear him in his voice kind of enjoying the power he feels like he has at that moment. Like, he's, like, telling her off.
I mean, he's being a bully.
Yeah. But she gets the last little lick in, which I should say he doesn't take. He does not wrap up the interview.
Sure.
You can tell that there's a vision of the interview that he's had in his mind. And so he's like, I'm getting it. And since she's not going to play along, or she's like, I've upset her, I'm just going to deliver it. So he then embarks on what this stunning piece of it where he just tells her how she's feeling in her life and her career right now after making this movie. I'm just going to play that for you.
If I might, doing the research about you, I looked at some interviews that you've done, and there's a difference between you when you're doing those romantic comedies and now. You seem to be a much more wary person, and if one could make the observation, a slightly bruised person than you were. And that would be due to what you went through, I suppose, your divorce and that sort of thing. That would have a profound effect on the way you feel about things.
Maybe, yeah.
And that would maybe also be one of the reasons why the role that you play in this film, that you feel able to tackle it now. I mean, it's changed your view, possibly, of relationships?
Yeah, I think life informs artists, and it helps them and helps them negotiate. And you can't help but reflect your experience in your work.
And do you imagine that you might, in the future, when you fully recover from all you've been through, that you might actually become different again, revert back to that person?
Well, hopefully I'll never revert, but I'm sure I'll become different again in some way. I'm sure it'll move on, hopefully. I'll evolve.
Well, I hope to be there when it happens, actually. And have you on again when we see the new Meg Ryan. Okay. Well, Meg Ryan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Meg Ryan.
Wow. This fucking, I mean, you can tell he just doesn't like her. It sounds like somebody who does not like her and has set up like a hit job interview, which would be fine if she were like a
politician or
somebody, or if this were some other platform. Sir, you have forgotten what your show is.
Right. It's ugly. But I also don't want to give Parkinson too much credit here. I feel like he has seized an opportunity because he feels like he is speaking for a large swath of people who are mad at this woman.
Who are mad at her.
Right. And I think this interview is like a symptom of a great misunderstanding, I think, actually, of what made the films that Meg Ryan was in really great, right? So, like, we've talked about Sleepless in Seattle, we've talked about When Harry Met Sally, and we've talked about them as being, yes, these movies that contain some of the elements of a lot of rom-coms that you've probably seen in your life, right? But also that they were kind of about something. They were answering questions and reacting things in real time. And that obviously drew Meg Ryan to those projects as an actor. She's exploring something in her career.
Right.
In the Cut is not a rom-com. It's not even a Nora Ephron movie, but it is a Meg Ryan movie in which she's doing more of that. It doesn't work
because you don't have the Nora Ephron.
Yeah, it's not a great movie. But I have to say, Meg Ryan is decent in that movie. And she's decent because you can tell she's clearly exploring the darker parts of love and romance and infatuation and kind of like what happens when you do become more cynical about those things for yourself. She's doing an interesting thing that is in conversation with everything she's ever made. You know what I mean? It's not...
If you think of them as like things about relationships and about like how humans relate to each other as opposed to just like saccharine love.
100%. And, you know, as angry as Parkinson is throughout the interview, the anguish bit, I find, is actually the most substantive, which is he's saying, listen, you're a rom-com queen known for romance. Like, where is the romance in this film? Like, where the hell is that?
Now, Jane Campion, the director of this film, has said that the first thing she wanted was to throw romance out of the window.
Yeah.
Why?
Because she believes she believes in love over romance.
Is there a difference?
Absolutely.
Can you be romantic and be in love?
In Jane's universe, it's romance is sort of a destructive force, and it's a lie. Whereas true love is a truth, a universal truth that is being pursued by my character.
Do you share that view, Jane Campion's view?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I think what she's made a movie about really is about a sort of debunking of the current Western romantic mythology that's in place, which is that there is such a thing as happily ever after or your Prince Charming will come. You know, she's saying that most people have a frustrated relationship with that myth, and that indeed it is a myth. And if you are present and looking for truth, you'll be more satisfied.
Yeah, I agree with her. Like, it's a beautiful thought.
Right? Like he's... Again, it's a thought that is totally logical. I feel like it's a thing, again, that having made the movies that she's made up until that point, having contributed to that myth of the happy ever after, she is uniquely entitled to say.
Yeah.
But that is not what anyone wants to hear from her.
No, I will say she does. He is right about she does sound different than like the clips you were playing for me earlier in this conversation where I couldn't help but lean forward and she felt so like down to earth in this compelling as opposed to boring way, despite how I started.
Yeah.
Here, she's not that. She's like, I'm sitting back actually.
Totally.
Like, I physically am backing up from her, you know.
100%. She really is. It was almost like you can hear her backing the chair away. Her guards are up. She's not as open.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bleak view of life, isn't it?
I think it's beautiful.
What? Beautiful? What's beautiful in that?
The search for truth is a beautiful thing.
No, that's not a search for truth. It's a search for cynicism and disenchantment. I mean, she's saying...
Do you think romance has more validity and more honesty in it than love?
Romance has inspired great movies, great poetry, great music.
I think I can distinguish between love and romance. I think, if you've ever been romanced.
Have I been romanced?
Yes.
Sure.
And how does it turn out well normally?
Yeah. I mean,
really?
I mean, there are certain.
Lucky you, dude.
Well.
I mean, I love that she turned it back on him.
Right. She turned it back on him. But just to say, like, the thing that's happening there, right, is they're having a substantive conversation about, like, what is the kind of love that we should be selling in the movies? If rom-coms exist, what are they going to be? Like, that's the fight that is happening. What's the purpose? What's the thing? And what Meg Ryan is saying between the lines is, I have arrived at a place as a person where it didn't work out for me. And what I'm interested in making now are movies that are a little more real about just like the world we live in and what like it actually means to try to find romantic fulfillment and to find love, you know? And Parkinson, I think here is speaking for a large swath of her fans and people who love those movies who are like, get back to the hits. Like I want my movies to be happy and to be simple, even if, they were never simple totally. I want them to be more like that. And this is where I feel like when I talk about who killed the rom-com, I feel like this interview is such an example of this discussion that must have happened at that time culturally, where like literally one effect of that interview, just concrete, is that Meg Ryan, and she's gone on the record saying this, she was already kind of thinking, you know what, I kind of want to raise my kid. And this, I don't know if I want to exist in Hollywood in the same way.
So I was wondering, I was going to ask you because I felt like she stopped acting or something, so she did.
Yeah, so basically after this, there's a big absence of her. She kind of fades away and stops doing them.
After this interview?
After this time period. And that's not in no small part because of this interview. Like,
how about that?
She's already sort of thinking about it, and she's like, I'm a little over this. Definitely feels like you, the public, are over this and over me and don't respect me.
So, peace.
And this interview really cements that for her. And she's like, yeah, I'm out. Which, of course, robs the genre of, like, its greatest star. But I think more than that.
Greatest star.
And instead, what we got were a bunch of films that, you know, I like and love, but aren't the same as those movies, really. And I think do turn into the sort of formulaic rom-coms that are so easily dismissed.
Like a Hallmark Channel movie.
Yeah, the Hallmark Channel movie is definitely kind of it. But even I would say something as contemporary as like Anyone But You, or like any of the rom-coms that get put on Netflix are very formulaic in that way. You can almost predict by the minute exactly what the plot point is going to be. And it's a formula that people love and gobble up and feel comfort in. But it's not the same as those earlier movies that you saw in that era that Meg Ryan was the star of. Right. It's just not.
Which is interesting. Like, it's not even like the thing that tried to reclaim the joy of a rom-com didn't even get it right. Like, because like the happily ever after, and this, because I didn't see any of these movies. I don't see the current ones. I didn't see the old ones. But like, what you have sold me on about those early movies is that they're not only happily ever after. And what frustrates me in listening to this debate between this guy and Meg Ryan is it feels like they have both embraced a false binary.
Yeah.
That it's like either happily ever after or it's complicated and messy. But my life is both, you know? Like, you know,
totally.
I think that, and I guess, I don't know, what if we had gone on and made more movies about it being both? Why does it have to, it's the false binary that's frustrating in that debate.
You just nailed it on the head, which is like, yeah, what if we had gotten more movies that did that? I will never know because that BBC interview helped kill the rom-com.
Helped kill the rom-com.
What do you got for me next time?
Okay, well, I have someone that I think we're all probably going to know who this is, but let me play you the quiz clips anyway. Listen to this first one.
I don't sing very well. It's a bleating kind of goat voice, you know, but it pleases me. And if anybody else likes it, it probably pleases them. They can get through my goat singing.
Bleating goat voice?
A bleating goat.
Okay.
A world-famous bleating goat. All right.
Charming and funny.
Also, it's kind of true, but anyway.
Okay.
I'm very much a character when I go on stage, I feel. I mean, I
Like an actor?
Yeah, I believe in my part all the way down the line, right the way down. But I do play it for all it's worth, because that's the way I do my stage thing. I'm an actor.
So we got a bleeding goat.
And a performer
who
who's an actor.
thinks of himself as an actor.
Okay.
I've done it now. My rock has rolled. I mean, it's flashed. I've done my Ziggy. That was my statement. Everything else that I'll do from now will really just be me enjoying myself. And the spark has gone. You see, it's like a shooting star. And when it's burnt out, it's the dazzle of it all. And that should be the naivety of rock and roll.
A shooting star, a bleeding goat, an actor.
An actor, a goat, a seemingly very poetic soul.
Is the Ziggy part.
Okay. Big Lives is a production of BBC Studios and Pushkin Industries. It's hosted by me, Emmanuel Dzotsi, and Kai Wright. Our team over at BBC Studios includes producer Emma Reverill, archive producer Samira Chowdhury, sound design by Melvin Rickaby. Our executive producer is Annie Brown. Our production coordinator is Galen Davis Connolly. Our apprentice is Amy Woods. And our production manager is Mabel Finnegan Wright. The team over at Pushkin Industries includes executive producer Costanza Gallardo, producer Daphne Chen, Our legal advisor is Jake Flanagan, and our marketing team includes Morgan Ratner and Jordan McMillan.